Deep in the vaults of history, hidden beneath layers of myth and whispered legend, lies a secret so profound it has echoed across civilizations for thousands of years. Picture a golden artifact unearthed from the sands of time, etched with symbols no modern scholar can fully decipher, a relic believed to hold the key to the divine. Stories like these aren't just fragments of the past, they're doorways beckoning us into a world where humanity once spoke directly to gods, where temples pulsed with celestial energy, and where the boundaries between earth and heaven blurred into mystery. What if I told you these glimpses of the divine realm weren't just fantasy, but part of a forgotten truth, preserved in 25 ancient secrets passed down through sacred texts, lost cultures, and even the very architecture of our ancestors? From the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the mystic scrolls of Tibet, every corner of the ancient world holds whispers of a higher plane, a realm beyond our own, where beings of unimaginable power shaped destinies and shared wisdom with those deemed worthy. The Egyptians called it the Duat, the Norse spoke of Asgard, the Hindus of Svarga. Each culture painted its own portrait of the divine, yet their stories intertwine in ways that defy coincidence. Why did these civilizations, separated by oceans and millennia, describe eerily similar gateways, rituals, and celestial messengers? Could it be that they were guarding fragments of a universal secret, pieces of a puzzle we're only now beginning to reconstruct? That's the journey we embark on today. Together, we'll unravel 25 of the most astonishing secrets left behind by these visionary cultures, codes hidden in sacred geometry, forbidden knowledge guarded by secret societies, even ancient technologies said to bridge the gap between mortal and divine. Some of these secrets will challenge everything you thought you knew about history. Others might stir something deeper, a memory, perhaps, or a longing for a connection lost to time. So if you're ready to step beyond the veil, to walk the same paths as mystics and pharaohs, then let's begin. The divine realm isn't just a myth, it's a mystery waiting to be solved, and you're about to see it with new eyes. The first of these ancient secrets takes us beneath the waves, to a legend so enduring it has captivated explorers and scholars for over 2,000 years, the lost city of Atlantis. According to Plato, this wasn't just any civilization. It was a paradise forged by the gods themselves, a kingdom of unmatched splendor where divine favor and human ingenuity intertwined. Picture an island of concentric rings, adorned with golden temples and canals that shimmered like liquid silver, its streets humming with technology so advanced, some believe it could only have been a gift from the divine. Plato's dialogues tell us Atlantis was ruled by wise kings, descendants of Poseidon, who mingled freely with their celestial ancestors, but this was no ordinary monarchy. The Atlanteans allegedly possessed knowledge far beyond their time, energy sources that defied nature, healing arts that could stave off death, even devices capable of bending the elements to their will. What's striking isn't just the description of their achievements, but how closely they mirror accounts from other ancient cultures. The Hindu texts speak of Vimanas, flying chariots bestowed by the gods. The Sumerians wrote of the Abzu, a watery realm where divine wisdom flowed. Could these all be fragments of the same truth? For centuries, explorers have scoured the globe searching for Atlantis, from the sunken ruins near the Azores to the vast plains of the Sahara. Some argue it was swallowed by the Mediterranean, others that it lies frozen beneath Antarctica, but perhaps the location isn't the real mystery. What if Atlantis, whether literal or symbolic, represents something far more profound? A golden age when humanity lived in harmony with higher forces, a time when the veil between mortal and divine was thin enough to touch. Even skeptics can't ignore the eerie parallels. The story of a great flood wiping out an advanced civilization appears in dozens of cultures, from the biblical tale of Noah to the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh. The Aztecs spoke of Aztlan, a lost homeland swallowed by water. The Maori of New Zealand recount the sinking of Hawaii. Are these mere coincidences or scattered memories of a cataclysm so vast it reshaped humanity's relationship with the gods? One thing is certain, the legend of Atlantis endures not just as a historical puzzle, but as a mirror. It reflects our deepest longing to reconnect with a forgotten epoch of enlightenment, a time when gods walked among men and shared their celestial secrets. Whether Atlantis was a physical place or a metaphor for a lost spiritual zenith, its legacy challenges us to ask, if such a divine connection once existed, could it be rediscovered? The Egyptians didn't just bury their dead, they armed them with divine knowledge, secrets scribbled on papyrus and tucked beside mummified bodies like celestial roadmaps. This was the Book of the Dead, though its real name whispers something far more profound, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Imagine a text so powerful it wasn't merely read but performed, a series of spells, hymns, and incantations designed to shepherd the soul through the perilous journey into the afterlife. At the heart of this sacred script stood Osiris, the green-skinned god of resurrection, who didn't just rule the underworld, he embodied the promise of rebirth itself. One of the most startling passages describes the weighing of the heart, where the deceased soul is placed on a golden scale against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth. But hidden in later verses is a lesser-known detail. The scales weren't just measuring morality, they were a test of vibrational purity. Ancient priests believed the heart had to sing in harmony with the universe to pass, a concept echoed in modern physics' idea of resonance. And here's where it gets even stranger. Some spells explicitly describe the afterlife as a series of gates, each guarded by deities who demanded passwords not in words but in frequencies. Chants like the hymn to the Seven Hathors weren't poetry, they were sonic keys, vibrations meant to unlock dimensional doorways. Then there's spell 17, often overlooked because its imagery seems nonsensical at first glance. It speaks of a field of reeds where the blessed dead labor, but not as slaves. They're depicted harvesting grain that glows with golden light, a metaphor modern researchers suggest might represent the cultivation of spiritual energy. Even more fascinating, the Egyptians insisted the afterlife wasn't static. Souls could evolve, ascending through higher realms under Osiris's guidance, a concept shockingly similar to Buddhist and Hindu ideas of progressive enlightenment. Perhaps most revealing are the negative confessions where the soul declares innocence of sins before 42 divine judges, but these weren't just moral admissions. Each judge corresponded to specific energy centers in the body, mirroring the chakra system thousands of years before Hinduism formalized it. "I have not blocked the flow of light," one confession states, a phrase that takes on new meaning when you realize priest-physicians used precise hand placements to manipulate what they called the channels of the gods during healing rituals. What emerges from these faded papyri isn't just a funeral manual, it's a cosmological blueprint. The Egyptians didn't fear death because they saw it as a homecoming, a return to the divine realm where Osiris, the first resurrected being, waited to welcome perfected souls. And that might be the greatest secret of all. Their entire civilization was built on the unshakable belief that mortality was merely the antechamber to something far grander. When modern archaeologists X-rayed mummies and found amulets perfectly positioned over what we now call the pineal gland, inscribed with spells to open the way to the sky, it begs the question, were these rituals symbolic or precise instructions for a journey we've forgotten how to take? Long before the pyramids rose from Egyptian sands, the Sumerians were etching their cosmic secrets into clay tablets, stories of gods who didn't merely watch from the heavens but walked among them. These were the Anunnaki, a pantheon of deities whose name literally means those who from heaven to earth came. Unlike the distant gods of later cultures, the Anunnaki were hands-on rulers, shaping human civilization with a blend of divine will and what some researchers believe might have been advanced technology. The most striking account comes from the Enuma Elish, a creation epic where the Anunnaki descend from a celestial realm called Nibiru, a mysterious planet said to cross into our solar system every 3,600 years. What's fascinating isn't just the story itself, but the startling specifics. Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki genetically engineering humanity, mixing their divine essence with earthly clay to create a workforce. Tablet after tablet depicts them wielding instruments resembling modern tools, from what look like handheld scanners to devices emitting beams of light. The Epic of Gilgamesh even speaks of a boat of heaven that roared like thunder, leaving behind scorched earth. Could these be metaphors or fragmented memories of advanced machinery? Theories abound. Some scholars point to the Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old artifact capable of generating electricity, as evidence of lost technology. Others highlight the precision of ziggurats, which weren't just temples, they were aligned with celestial events with mathematical accuracy impossible without sophisticated astronomy. But the most provocative detail lies in the Anunnaki's hierarchy. Texts describe a caste system among these gods, with leaders like Enlil and Enki debating humanity's fate in councils eerily reminiscent of modern governance. Perhaps the biggest question isn't whether the Anunnaki existed as literal beings, but why their legacy resonates so deeply. From the winged discs of Egyptian art to the Vedic descriptions of Vimanas, cultures worldwide share tales of celestial teachers. The Sumerians didn't just worship their gods, they credited them with everything from agriculture to law, hinting at a time when divinity wasn't abstract but tangible. Whether myth or misunderstood history, the Anunnaki challenge us to reconsider humanity's origins and the possibility that our first mentors came not from Earth but the stars. Hidden within the ancient verses of the Hindu Vedas lies a concept so astonishing it has fueled debates for centuries: Vimanas, the legendary flying chariots of the gods. These weren't just mythical vessels, they were described with startling technical precision. The Vimanika Shastra, a later Sanskrit text, devotes entire chapters to their construction, detailing materials like lightweight yet unbreakable metals and propulsion systems powered by mercury vortex engines. One passage even mentions pilots needing specialized training to handle the intense gravitational forces, a detail that feels eerily modern. But the most compelling accounts come from older scriptures like the Mahabharata, where Vimanas aren't just transport but weapons of unimaginable power. In one battle scene, the hero Arjuna faces a flying craft that releases a single projectile charged with the energy of the universe, reducing entire cities to ash. The description mirrors accounts of nuclear blasts so closely that 20th century physicist Robert Oppenheimer famously quoted the text after witnessing the first atomic bomb test. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Scholars remain divided. Traditionalists argue these were purely symbolic metaphors for spiritual ascension. Yet others point to temple carvings at sites like Shravanabelagola, where intricate depictions of wheeled aircraft resemble modern engineering schematics. Even more intriguing are the parallels to global legends. The Bible's Ezekiel saw a wheel within a wheel descending from the sky. Chinese chronicles speak of dragons of fire and light carrying celestial emperors. Could these all be cultural interpretations of the same advanced technology? Modern UFO sightings add another layer. Witness descriptions of silent, disc-shaped craft performing impossible maneuvers echo ancient Vimana accounts. Declassified government reports now acknowledge unidentified aerial phenomena exhibiting physics-defying capabilities: sudden acceleration, anti-gravity movements, precisely the traits ascribed to these divine vehicles. The coincidence is hard to ignore. Perhaps the Vimana's true significance lies beyond the debate of literal versus symbolic. They represent humanity's enduring fascination with transcending earthly limits, a thread woven through every culture's lore. Whether viewed as lost technology or allegory, These texts challenge us to reconsider our place in the cosmos and whether the boundary between divine and human innovation was ever as clear as we assume. When December 21st, 2012 arrived, the world held its breath, not because the Mayan calendar ended that day, but because we misunderstood what that ending truly meant. The long count, the Mayans' intricate timekeeping system, didn't predict doomsday. It marked the completion of a 5,125-year cycle, a span they called a baktan. To the Maya, time wasn't linear, it spiraled in great cosmic wheels, and this date signaled not destruction but rebirth, a rare alignment when the earthly and divine realms supposedly drew closest. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan manuscripts, contains clues modern scholars are still deciphering. Pages filled with intricate star charts and deity portrayals suggest the Maya believed this celestial convergence would trigger a change of sun, a transformation of human consciousness. Their priests spoke of Oxlahan-Taiku, the 13 heavens, a layered spiritual dimension that would briefly overlap with our world during this alignment. Far from fiery apocalypse, their prophecies hinted at something subtler, a thinning of the veil between realms, offering humanity a chance to ascend. What's often overlooked is how precisely the Maya mapped these cycles. Their astronomers calculated planetary movements with jaw-dropping accuracy, tracking Venus's orbit to within 2 hours over a 500-year span. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza isn't just a pyramid, it's a celestial clock. During equinoxes, shadow serpents slither down its steps, a phenomenon tied to their belief in cyclical time. This wasn't superstition, it was a science of the sacred, a fusion of mathematics and mysticism suggesting they knew something we're only beginning to grasp. Modern researchers note something peculiar around 2012. Global brainwave studies detected shifts in collective consciousness. Meditation groups reported intensified experiences. Ancient sacred sites from Stonehenge to Machu Picchu saw surges in anomalous energy readings. Even NASA recorded unusual solar activity that year, with the sun's magnetic field flipping polarity, an event the Maya might have linked to their prophecies. Coincidence, perhaps, but when multiple indigenous traditions from the Hopi to the Hindu share eerily similar predictions for this era, it's worth asking, did the Maya glimpse a cosmic rhythm modern science hasn't yet quantified? The greatest lesson of 2012 isn't about failed doomsday predictions. It's about how a civilization without telescopes or computers mapped time in ways that still resonate today. The Maya didn't fear the cycle's end, they prepared for it, building temples aligned to galactic center, crafting rituals to harness these energies. Their secret wasn't prophecy, it was preparation, a reminder that when divine and earthly rhythms sync, opportunity knocks. The question isn't whether they were right, it's whether we were listening. High above the frozen mists of Norse legend stands Yggdrasil, the colossal ash tree whose roots and branches stitch the cosmos together, not just a symbol but a living bridge between worlds. To the Vikings, this wasn't mere mythology, it was the architecture of existence itself. Its gnarled roots plunged into 3 sacred wells, each a gateway to different realms, while its towering limbs cradled the 9 worlds in their grasp. Picture the divine realm of Asgard glittering with golden halls resting atop the highest boughs, while our own Midgard, the realm of mortals, dangled like a pendant midway down the trunk. But here's what most modern retellings miss. Yggdrasil wasn't static. It pulsed with life, its bark crawling with creatures whispering secrets, its leaves rustling with prophecies even the gods strained to hear. At the heart of this cosmic tree lies a story of sacrifice so profound it reshaped Norse spirituality. Odin, the All-Father, didn't gain his legendary wisdom through conquest or birthright. He won it through unimaginable suffering. The Havamal, an ancient poem etched into the Poetic Edda, recounts how he hung himself from Yggdrasil's branches for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, starved and bleeding. But this wasn't mere torment, it was a ritual of transformation. As the winds howled through the world tree's limbs, Odin's agony became a conduit. On the final night, the runes, the mystical alphabet holding the universe's secrets, revealed themselves to him in a flash of ecstatic vision. What's staggering about this myth isn't just its brutality, but its layers of meaning. The Norse didn't believe wisdom could be gifted or stolen. It had to be earned through direct communion with the divine. Yggdrasil wasn't just a tree, it was a medium, a living antenna channeling knowledge between realms, and Odin's ordeal reflects a truth echoed across shamanic traditions worldwide. Enlightenment demands surrender. The number 9 isn't arbitrary either. It mirrors the 9 realms Yggdrasil connects, suggesting his suffering wove him into the fabric of the cosmos itself. Beneath Yggdrasil's roots lurked other wonders. The well of Mimir, guarded by a headless god who spoke wisdom from the waters, offered draughts of omniscience to those brave enough to drink. Yet even here, the price was steep. Odin sacrificed an eye to partake. Meanwhile, the dragon Nidhugga gnawed ceaselessly at the tree's roots, embodying chaos's relentless threat to cosmic order. These weren't arbitrary details, they formed a delicate balance. The Norse saw existence as a dance between creation and decay, with Yggdrasil standing resilient at the center. Modern scholars often overlook how practical this cosmology felt to the Vikings. When they carved runes onto weapons or marked boundaries with ash wood, they weren't just decorating, they were tapping into Yggdrasil's power. A ship's mast made from an ash tree became a smaller-scale world tree, linking sailors to divine protection. Even the act of weaving, a sacred craft to Norse women, mirrored the tree's interconnecting branches. Every aspect of life tied back to this grand design. The eerie part, scientific parallels emerge where we least expect them. Contemporary physics speaks of the cosmic web, a vast network of galaxies clustered along invisible filaments, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Yggdrasil's structure. The Norse may have lacked telescopes, but their vision of a connected, vibrating universe feels unsettlingly prescient. Whether by intuition or insight, they grasped a fundamental truth: nothing exists in isolation. From the highest god to the lowliest worm, all drew breath from the same celestial source. Yggdrasil's legacy endures because it's more than a myth, it's a map. It charts not just the Norse cosmos, but the human longing to belong to something vast and meaningful. Odin's sacrifice reminds us that true wisdom often lies beyond comfort, in the liminal spaces where mortality brushes against the divine. And perhaps that's the secret hidden in the world tree's roots. The boundaries between realms were never walls but doorways, if we're willing to pay the price to walk through. Tucked away in the Himalayas, veiled by ice and myth, lies a legend that has lured seekers for centuries: the kingdom of Shambhala. To Tibetan Buddhists, this wasn't just a hidden utopia. It was a celestial sanctuary, a place where enlightened kings guarded sacred wisdom, and the very air vibrated with spiritual energy. Ancient texts like the Kalachakra Tantra describe it not as a physical location, but a pure land, accessible only to those whose minds have shed earthly illusions. Yet, paradoxically, they also provide cryptic directions north of the Sita River, beyond mountains shaped like crescent moons, hints that have fueled countless expeditions into the world's most treacherous peaks. The kings of Shambhala were no ordinary rulers. Called Kulikas, they were said to possess bodies of light, their lifespan stretching centuries as they guided humanity toward a golden age. The Zhangjong Nyan Jayu, an ancient Burn scripture, claims these monarchs communicated through dreams, whispering teachings to adepts across continents. But here's what sets Shambhala apart from other paradises. It's not static. Buddhist prophecies tell of its future king, Rigden Jaipo, who will ride forth with a radiant army to end the world's darkness, a narrative echoing messianic traditions from Christianity to Hinduism. European explorers like Nicholas Roerich became obsessed with Shambhala in the early 20th century, convinced it held esoteric secrets or even advanced technology. Soviet agents, bizarrely, launched expeditions to find its psychic energy weapons, while Nazi occultists twisted its lore into Aryan mythology. Yet Tibetan monks insist these seekers missed the point entirely. The real Shambhala, they say, exists in a vibrational dimension overlapping our own, visible only to those who have mastered inner stillness. Some monasteries guard terma hidden scrolls said to be maps to its gates, encoded in symbols that shift when viewed by unworthy eyes. Modern satellite imagery has identified remote valleys in Tibet's Ngari prefecture with unusual electromagnetic anomalies, where compasses spin wildly and birds avoid flying overhead. Locals speak of luminous orbs hovering near Mount Kailash, a mountain revered as Shambhala's physical anchor. Scientifically, these phenomena could stem from mineral deposits or geomagnetic quirks, or perhaps something stranger. The Dalai Lama himself has called Shambhala a state of mind, yet acknowledges its geographical roots, leaving the door ajar for both metaphor and mystery. What makes Shambhala endure isn't just its elusiveness, but its dual nature. It's both refuge and call to action, a promise that enlightenment isn't passive, but a disciplined journey toward awakening. Whether as a physical kingdom waiting to be uncovered or a metaphor for humanity's highest potential, its legend whispers a tantalizing challenge: the divine realm isn't lost. It's hidden, patiently waiting for us to become ready to see it. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the air hummed with the scent of laurel and sulfur, the ancient world's most powerful woman sat upon a tripod, breathing in vapors from a crack in the earth. This was the Oracle of Delphi, a simple peasant girl chosen to channel the god Apollo himself. They called her the Pythia, and for nearly 1,000 years, kings and beggars alike trekked to her sanctuary with offerings of gold and trembling questions. But this was no theatrical performance. Those who witnessed her rituals described a terrifying transformation. As priests led her to the sacred chamber, her body would convulse, her voice dropping to a guttural register no human throat could naturally produce. The very ground beneath her feet was said to exhale a mist called Numa, the breath of Gaia, which sent her spiraling into divine madness. What made Delphi unique wasn't just the prophecies, it was their eerie duality. The Pythia's words were famously cryptic, verses that could topple empires or spare them based on interpretation. Take Croesus, the wealthy king of Lydia, who asked if he should attack Persia. The oracle replied, "If you cross the Halys River, a great empire will fall." Confident, he waged war only to realize too late the doomed empire was his own. Yet for all their ambiguity, these prophecies carried staggering accuracy. The Athenian statesman Themistocles was told to defend behind wooden walls while others panicked. He recognized this meant naval ships, an insight that saved Greece from Persian conquest at Salamis. Modern excavations reveal startling scientific backing to these ancient accounts. Geologists discovered 2 fault lines intersecting beneath the temple, releasing ethylene gas, a substance known to induce trance states. The omphalos, the sacred stone marking Delphi as the world's navel, sits precisely where these fissures meet. Even the temple's orientation seems deliberate. It faces east, aligning with the sunrise on Apollo's feast days, as if the entire complex was engineered to amplify sacred energy. But the Pythia's true power lay in her role as a living bridge between realms. Unlike passive seers, she didn't merely predict events, she participated in them. Before major consultations, priests performed elaborate rites, sprinkling barley meal, burning laurel leaves, and sacrificing goats whose convulsions confirmed Apollo's presence. The oracle wasn't just answering questions, she was negotiating with the divine, a practice closer to shamanic journeying than fortune-telling. Her influence extended far beyond Greece. Egyptian pharaohs sent envoys with gifts. Roman emperors rebuilt her temple after earthquakes, terrified of losing her guidance. Yet by the 4th century, as Christianity rose, the vapors faded. Some say the gods withdrew, others that the earth's wounds closed. The last recorded prophecy, a lament to Emperor Julian, "Tell the king the fair-wrought house has fallen. Within months Julian died in battle and the sanctuary fell into silence." Delphi's legacy isn't just about predictions, it's a testament to humanity's relentless hunger to pierce the veil. The Pythia's trances remind us that the ancients didn't see the divine as distant, but as a force that could and would speak through mortal lips. Whether through geological phenomena or genuine transcendence, her voice shaped history in ways that still echo today, a whisper from the edge of the unseen. The story of Quetzalcoatl isn't just a myth, it's a cosmic riddle wrapped in feathers and fire, one that changed the course of history. To the Aztecs, this wasn't merely a god. He was the plumed serpent who had shaped their world, a deity of wind and wisdom who'd once walked among them as a bearded, pale-skinned king. According to their sacred texts, Quetzalcoatl had sailed east across the sea, vowing to return one day to reclaim his throne. But no one could have predicted how tragically literal that prophecy would become, or how it would unravel an empire. When strange ships appeared off the coast of Mexico in 1519, the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma froze. The strangers wore metal like second skin, rode beasts unlike any in Mesoamerica, and carried weapons that spat thunder. But what terrified him most was their leader's appearance. Hernan Cortés, with his pale complexion and beard, mirrored the descriptions of Quetzalcoatl so precisely that Moctezuma's advisors panicked. Was this the god's promised return or a cruel trick of fate? The Aztec calendar had long foretold this era as the time of the reed, a cycle when cosmic forces would realign. To Moctezuma, the coincidence was too staggering to ignore. The irony cuts deep. Quetzalcoatl wasn't just a harbinger of renewal, he was the anti-sacrifice deity, the god who'd famously rejected human blood offerings in favor of jade and butterflies. Yet here were the Spanish, whose brutality would soon eclipse even the Aztecs' most infamous rituals. Some scholars argue Moctezuma's hesitation, his initial refusal to fight, stemmed from genuine religious terror. Others claim it was political theater, a ruler buying time to assess these intruders. But the Florentine Codex, compiled by Spanish friars from Aztec accounts, paints a haunting picture, nobles whispering that the god had come to punish them for straying from his teachings. Modern archaeologists have uncovered something even more intriguing. At the temple of Tlahuizcalpantecutli, the Lord of the Dawn, linked to Quetzalcoatl, murals depict the god's departure on a raft of serpents, a scene that eerily resembles European sailing ships. Even the timing aligns. The Aztec year, one reed, repeated every 52 years in their calendar, and 1519 fell precisely on such a cycle. Whether by accident or design, Cortés's arrival ticked every box of the prophecy, but the real mystery lies deeper. Quetzalcoatl's myth wasn't unique to the Aztecs. The Maya knew him as Kukulkan, the Toltecs as the hero King Ciacatl. Versions of this bearded, light-skinned teacher appear in Inca legends and even Polynesian oral histories. Could these stories be fragmented memories of actual visitors? Some theorists point to Viking expeditions reaching the Americas centuries before Columbus, or even older transoceanic contacts. Others see a universal archetype, the benevolent outsider who brings knowledge before vanishing, leaving behind a promise to return. The tragedy of Quetzalcoatl's prophecy isn't just that it paved the way for conquest, but how it reflects humanity's hunger for meaning in chaos. The Aztecs weren't naive. They were a sophisticated civilization with advanced astronomy and poetry. Yet when faced with the inexplicable, they reached for myth just as we might today. Perhaps the plumed serpent's greatest lesson isn't about gods or Spaniards, but about the stories we tell to make sense of a world where the divine and the disastrous often wear the same face. Covered in gold and radiating untold power, the Ark of the Covenant wasn't just a religious relic, it was a weapon, a communication device, and a divine battery all in one. According to the Book of Exodus, its design came directly from God himself, with specifications so precise they bordered on engineering schematics. Acacia wood overlaid with pure gold inside and out, a mercy seat crowned by two hammered cherubim with wings touching. This wasn't artistry. It was technology disguised as sacred craft. The Ark's most terrifying feature, its sheer lethality. When the Israelite priest Uzzah reached out to steady it during transport, he was struck dead instantly. The Philistines who captured it suffered plagues until they sent it back on a cart pulled by cows wandering aimlessly. Even the Levite priests tasked with handling it had to approach with ropes tied around their ankles, a morbid safety measure in case they dropped dead and needed to be dragged away. But what made the Ark so dangerous? Ancient Hebrew texts describe it as God's earthly throne, but also as something far more tangible, a conductor for celestial energy. The term Shekinah, glory, often used for the divine presence that hovered above it, shares linguistic roots with words meaning to settle or to dwell. Some scholars interpret this as a manifestation of raw voltage, citing descriptions of crackling sounds and bluish fire between the cherubim's wings. The Ark's construction hints at electromagnetic properties, gold a conductor encasing wood an insulator, with poles for transport that prevented direct contact. Even its placement in the tabernacle's inner sanctum, a room lined with more gold, suggests it might have functioned like a capacitor in a Faraday cage. Theories about the Ark's disappearance after the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BC range from plausible to wildly speculative. Second Maccabees claims the prophet Jeremiah hid it in a cave on Mount Nebo, while Ethiopian tradition insists it was smuggled to Axum, where it supposedly resides today in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, guarded by a single monk who vows to protect it with his life. Modern archaeologists have scanned the proposed sites with ground-penetrating radar, uncovering tantalizing voids beneath ancient temples, but no definitive proof. Yet the most compelling clues might lie in overlooked details. The Knights Templar, during their excavations beneath Temple Mount, reportedly found artifacts of immense power before suddenly amassing wealth and influence. Could they have relocated the Ark to Europe, or consider the copper scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which lists buried treasure locations in code? Some researchers believe it's a map to the Ark's hiding place. Recent discoveries near the ruins of Shiloh, where the Ark once rested, reveal an ancient altar with traces of gold plating and burn marks consistent with high-energy discharge. What's striking is how these mysteries intersect with modern science. Plasma physicists note that the Ark's described effects, sparks, sudden death, even the miraculous fall of Jericho's walls resemble high-frequency electrical discharges. Could it have been a conduit for atmospheric energy, a sacred Tesla coil? The deeper we dig, the more the Ark defies categorization. It wasn't just a box. It was a boundary between mortal and divine, a relic that challenged the laws of physics, and its absence leaves us wondering whether it was hidden or taken back by forces beyond our understanding. In the heart of Shinto mythology, there exists a tale of divine withdrawal so profound it echoes humanity's deepest fear, the loss of light itself. Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess, didn't just illuminate the heavens, she was the source of all life, warmth, and order in the cosmos. But when her brother, the storm god Susanoo, unleashed a violent rampage, defiling her sacred weaving hall with a flayed horse and slaughtering her attendants, her grief was so immense she did the unthinkable. Sealing herself inside the celestial cave Ama no Iwato, Amaterasu plunged the world into an endless night. Crops withered, spirits withered, and chaos reigned. This wasn't merely darkness, it was the unraveling of creation. Yet what unfolds next is no simple myth, it's a masterclass in sacred psychology. The other deities didn't beg or bargain. They staged an intervention of divine theater. The goddess Aim no Uzium overturned a washtub, stamping rhythms upon it while shedding her robes in an ecstatic dance that sent the assembled gods into roaring laughter. The sound was so infectious, so irresistibly alive that Amaterasu, burning with curiosity, cracked the cave's entrance just enough to ask why they rejoiced without her. Because there is a goddess among us more glorious than you, they declared, revealing a mirror polished to perfection. When Amaterasu leaned closer, stunned by her own reflection, the gods yanked her fully into the light and sealed the cave behind her. The sun returned, and with it the world's balance. Beneath this story's surface lies a tapestry of esoteric wisdom. The mirror, now enshrined at Ai's grand shrine as Yota no Kagami, isn't just an artifact, it's a symbol of self-reflection's transformative power. Shinto priests recognize that light can't be commanded. It must be lured through joy, authenticity, and the unshakable pull of communal vitality. The rituals derived from this myth, like the Kagura dances performed at shrines to this day, aren't mere reenactments. They're vibrational medicine designed to harmonize the seen and unseen worlds. Even more fascinating are the parallels to other global traditions. The Norse tell of the sun goddess Sol fleeing the relentless wolf's girl across the sky, another celestial light in peril. In Egypt, Ra's nightly journey through the underworld mirrors this temporary withdrawal. But Amaterasu's story stands apart because her return hinges not on force but fascination. The mirror's role is particularly revealing. Unlike Western myths where gods assert dominance, here divinity is drawn out by its own radiance, reflected back through human ingenuity. Modern science lends eerie credence to this ancient narrative. Researchers studying collective consciousness note that joy and laughter can measurably shift group energy fields, exactly the phenomenon the gods exploited to reset the cosmic balance. The cave itself might symbolize the human psyche as shadow realms where light retreats during trauma. Amaterasu's myth then becomes a roadmap. When darkness descends, we don't demand light, we create conditions so vibrant, so irresistibly alive that light chooses to return. Perhaps that's why this legend endures. It's not just about a goddess in a cave, it's about how we navigate our own periods of spiritual eclipse. The rituals at Ai's shrine, where priests still consecrate mirrors as vessels of her essence, remind us that divinity isn't distant, it's waiting to be reflected in our actions. After all, if laughter and a polished surface could restore the sun, imagine what else we might summon forth when we dare to dance in the dark. Beneath the rolling green hills of Ireland and the mist-shrouded forests of Wales, the Celts believed in a realm beyond mortal sight. A place where time flowed differently, where apple trees bore silver fruit, and where beauty never faded. This was the other world, known as Tir na en Og to the Gaels, Anon to the Britons, a parallel dimension accessed through hidden doorways, ancient burial mounds, sudden sea mists, or the hollow trunks of elder trees. But the most astonishing part, these weren't just fanciful legends. To the Celts, the otherworld was as real as the earth beneath their feet, and its inhabitants, the Tuatha Dé Danann, weren't mere figments of imagination. They were remembered as gods who walked the land long before humans arrived, beings of such power and grace that when the Milesians, the ancestors of the Irish, conquered Ireland, the Tuatha didn't die. They simply diminished, retreating into the hills and becoming the Aos Shi, the fairy folk of later lore. The Tuatha Dé Danann's origins are shrouded in mystery. Medieval texts like the Liber Gabala Eren claim they arrived in Ireland on flying ships, cloaked in magic mist, carrying 4 legendary treasures: the Stone of Fall, which roared when touched by a true king, the Spear of Lug, which guaranteed victory, the Sword of Light belonging to Nuada, and the Cauldron of Dagda, which could feed armies without ever emptying. These weren't just weapons or tools, they were conduits of sovereignty, each echoing themes found in Norse, Hindu, and even Arthurian traditions. Lug, the radiant god of many skills, mirrors Odin's wisdom and Krishna's versatility. The Cauldron of Dagda, its Welsh counterpart, the Cauldron of Annwn, later inspired the Holy Grail myths. Fairy lore took darker, more intimate turns in everyday Celtic life. Farmers left milk offerings for the good people to avoid curses. Stones with natural holes, called fairy eyes, were hung in homes for protection. but the most haunting tales were of abduction, those spirited away to the otherworld like Oisin, who followed the fairy Niam to Tur-Na and Og on a white horse, only to return centuries later, crumbling to dust when he dismounted. These stories weren't just entertainment. They served as warnings and explanations. Sudden illnesses, vanished livestock, or changelings left in place of infants were all blamed on the Aoshi's whims. Medieval literature absorbed these themes like a sponge. The Voyage of Bran, an early Irish tale, describes a hero sailing to an island where flowers never wilt and sorrow doesn't exist, a clear precursor to later quests for Avalon or the earthly paradise. Even King Arthur's final journey to Avalon mirrors Celtic otherworld motifs. A wounded king ferried to a timeless land of healing. Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream borrowed heavily from British fairy lore, with Puck's mischief reflecting the capriciousness of the Púca, a shape-shifting trickster spirit. Modern archaeology lends eerie credence to these beliefs. Many fairy forts, circular earthen mounds dotting the Irish countryside, are now known to be ancient ritual sites aligned with solstices. Recent studies suggest some fairy trails, those meandering paths avoided by superstitious locals, follow underground water currents or magnetic ley lines. Whether by intuition or observation, the Celts mapped their landscape with an eye for the unseen. The enduring magic of the otherworld lies in its ambiguity. It's neither heaven nor hell, but a liminal space where gods became fairies, where time bends, and where the veil thins on Samhain. Unlike the rigid afterlives of other cultures, the Celtic version invites exploration and caution. Those who disrespect its boundaries risk madness or worse, but those who approach with reverence might glimpse wonders beyond mortal comprehension. In the end, the Tuatha Dé Danann's greatest gift wasn't their treasures, it was the reminder that the world is far stranger and far more alive than it seems. High in the Andes, where the air grows thin and the clouds brush against ancient stones, the Incas believed their empire didn't just rise by human hands, it was shaped by the whispers of a god. Viracocha, the creator deity, wasn't some distant figure looming over myths. He was an active force, a teacher who walked among mortals in disguise, leaving behind cryptic instructions and sacred sites that still baffle archaeologists today. Unlike other pantheons where gods ruled from celestial thrones, Viracocha's presence was intimate, his guidance woven into the very foundations of Inca cities. According to legends recorded by Spanish chroniclers like Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa, Viracocha emerged from the depths of Lake Titicaca after a great flood, his skin pale as moonlight, his beard unlike any feature known to the indigenous people. He traveled the land, performing miracles, turning boulders into living beings, commanding the sun and moon to rise before vanishing into the Pacific Ocean with a promise to return. But before he left, he imparted divine knowledge to the first Inca rulers, teaching them astronomy, agriculture, and the sacred art of stonework. The precision of Machu Picchu's masonry, where blades of grass can't slip between granite blocks, wasn't just engineering. It was devotion carved into rock, a language of worship meant to withstand time itself. The most compelling evidence of Viracocha's influence lies in the abrupt abandonment of sites like Puma Punku and Ollantaytambo. These massive complexes, with their megalithic stones weighing hundreds of tons, show signs of construction halted mid-effort. Half-carved pillars toppled monoliths, as if workers dropped their tools in response to some celestial command. Spanish accounts mention Inca priests speaking of the god's displeasure, a warning that echoed through the empire like thunder. Was this divine intervention or a coded message about political upheaval? The mystery deepens when you consider the Sec system, a network of ritual pathways radiating from Cusco like a spiderweb, each line aligned to celestial events and terminating at a sacred spring or shrine. These weren't arbitrary, they functioned as a massive stone and earth antenna, channeling Viracocha's will through the landscape. Modern researchers have uncovered even stranger details. At Sacsayhuaman, the zigzagging fortress walls above Cusco, acoustic engineers found that certain niches amplify specific sound frequencies tones that match the harmonics of Andean panpipes used in rituals to call down the gods. Meanwhile, the Ushnu stone platforms in temple plazas weren't just altars, they were conduits. When filled with water during ceremonies, they reflected the Milky Way with uncanny precision, turning earthly rituals into celestial mirrors. The Incas didn't just worship Viracocha, they communicated with him using their architecture as a resonant bridge between realms. What happened to this divine dialogue? When the Spanish arrived, they documented Inca priests burning sacred quipus knotted cords believed to hold Viracocha's teachings rather than let them fall into foreign hands. Some Andean elders still whisper that the god's final message was one of retreat, instructing his people to sleep now but remember. Perhaps that's why, even today, pilgrimages to sites like the Temple of the Moon near Cusco continue. Shamans speak of hearing voices in the wind, a language older than words, promising that when the world needs him most, Viracocha will walk among the mountains again. Until then, the stones remain not just as ruins, but as unanswered questions in a conversation that never truly ended. Etched into the stone walls of Persepolis and painted onto ancient Persian manuscripts, the Faravaha hovers like a celestial guardian, a winged figure with outstretched feathers, clasping a ring of sovereignty, its very presence radiating divine authority. To the Zoroastrians, this wasn't just art, it was a cosmic blueprint, a visual sermon carved into the fabric of their civilization. At first glance, it resembles the winged sun discs of Egypt or Assyria, but the Faravaha holds secrets those symbols never dared to whisper. Every curve, every line pulses with meaning. The bearded figure at its center represents humanity's connection to the divine, while the two flowing ribbons beneath symbolize the twin paths of a Shah cosmic order and drudge chaos, a reminder that free will isn't just a gift but a test. The wings, divided into three tiers, mirror Zoroastrianism's core tenets: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Yet the most provocative detail lies in the figure's outstretched hand. Some interpret it as a blessing, others as a warning. Either way, it points unflinchingly forward toward the future. This wasn't passive symbolism, it was a call to action. Unlike the rigid determinism of neighboring cultures, Zoroastrianism taught that humans weren't pawns of fate but co-creators with Ahura Mazda, the god of light. The Faravaha's ring, that's the covenant, the unbreakable bond between mortal effort and divine grace. What's staggering is how this ancient Persian motif seeped into the spiritual DNA of later faiths. When Jewish exiles lived under Persian rule during the Babylonian captivity, they absorbed elements of Zoroastrian thought, concepts like a dualistic cosmic struggle, a final judgment, and even the messianic savior Saoshyant found echoes in Hebrew prophecy. The biblical cherubim guarding the Ark of the Covenant bear uncanny resemblances to the Faravaha's winged guardians. Even the halo of Christian saints traces a direct line back to this Persian emblem of enlightenment. Modern scholars debate whether these connections stem from cultural exchange or something deeper, a shared archetype buried in humanity's collective unconscious. The Faravaha's influence didn't stop at religion. It inspired the insignia of empires, from the Achaemenids to the Sasanians, and even whispers in the symbology of modern fraternal orders. Its endurance suggests something universal, the human longing to visualize the invisible, to give form to the divine spark that pulls us toward transcendence. Standing before a Faravaha carving in Yazd's fire temples today, you can almost hear the rustle of those stone wings, not just as relics of a dead empire, but as living invitations. The Zoroastrians didn't worship this symbol, they used it as a compass, a reminder that divinity isn't confined to temples or texts. It's woven into every choice, every moment where we reach, like that outstretched hand, toward the light. In a world drowning in chaos, the Faravaha's silent sermon still resonates. Glory isn't given, it's earned, one righteous act at a time. For the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the past isn't something lost to history. It pulses through every rock, river, and gust of wind as part of the eternal dreamtime. Known as Tijukurpa in many dialects, this isn't just a collection of myths. It's a living framework where creation beings, the ancestors, walked the barren earth and sang it into existence. Picture a time before time when giant serpents like the rainbow snake carved riverbeds with their coils, when the honey ant ancestor painted constellations with sacred songs, and when every dune and waterfall emerged from the footsteps of these celestial wanderers. These stories weren't mere explanations of nature, they were maps of morality, survival, and connection encoded in the land itself. Take the tale of the Watikatjara, the two lizard men who crossed the desert carrying fire. As they journeyed, they paused to teach each clan they encountered how to harness flames, not just for warmth, but for ceremony. When greed threatened one group, the lizards withdrew their gift until balance was restored. Hidden in this narrative is a profound ecological lesson. Resources are sacred, not limitless, and must be shared with wisdom. Similarly, the Seven Sisters songline, stretching thousands of kilometers across the continent, tells of celestial women fleeing a shape-shifting pursuer. Their flight left behind rock formations and waterholes, but more crucially, it wove a cautionary thread about consent and resilience into the landscape. What sets Dreamtime stories apart is their fluidity. Unlike rigid scriptures, these oral traditions adapt like living organisms, varying slightly between clans yet always pointing to the same truths. Elders recount them through song, dance, and intricate dot paintings, each medium adding layers of meaning. A single symbol, a U shape for a seated person, concentric circles for a waterhole, can convey histories, laws, and warnings depending on context. This isn't just storytelling, it's a multisensory language designed to outlast generations. When anthropologists recorded these tales, they often missed the deeper currents, the way certain syllables vibrated at frequencies that resonated with sacred sites, or how dance movements mirrored the ancestors' paths with uncanny precision. Modern science is only beginning to catch up. Geologists have found that songlines frequently trace ancient trade routes linked to water sources and mineral deposits. Astronomers note that descriptions of the emu in the sky constellation align with seasonal changes signaling when to harvest eggs. Even the concept of country, the Aboriginal belief that land isn't owned but belongs to all beings, finds echoes in today's ecological movements. The Dreamtime wasn't just spiritual, it was pragmatic, a survival manual fused with divine revelation. Yet the most startling aspect lies in the rituals. During corroborees, initiates reenact ancestral journeys, their bodies painted with ochre patterns that mirror the Earth's energy lines. Participants report entering trance states where time collapses, and they witness the creation beings firsthand. A phenomenon modern neuroscience might label as shared hallucination, but which elders describe as memory. For them, the Dreamtime isn't past tense, it's a parallel layer of reality, accessible to those who know how to listen. The tragedy of colonization nearly severed this thread. Missionaries dismissed the stories as pagan nonsense, and children stolen from their families lost the chance to learn them. But like the rainbow snake that retreats underground during droughts, the Dreamtime endured. Today, Aboriginal artists and activists revive these narratives not as relics, but as lifelines, reminders that divinity isn't confined to temples or texts. It's in the cicada's hum at dusk, in the way sandstone holds the sun's warmth long after nightfall, in the insistence that every rock has a story if you're willing to hear it. Perhaps that's the secret the ancestors left behind. The sacred isn't somewhere else. It's here, woven into the earth's bones, waiting for us to remember how to read the world as they once did, not with eyes alone, but with the whole of our being. Before there was light, before even time itself, there was only swirling, primordial chaos, at least according to the Babylonians, whose Enuma Elish creation epic paints a cosmos born not from peaceful design, but from divine warfare. This seven-tablet poem, etched into clay millennia ago, begins with a universe of roiling waters, where the fresh waters of Apsu and the salt waters of Tiamat merge in a turbulent embrace. But this union wasn't serene. It birthed generations of gods whose clamor so disturbed the primal stillness that Apsu plotted their destruction. What unfolds next isn't just myth. It's a cosmic revolution, one that eerily mirrors modern astrophysics' most explosive theories. Enter Marduk, the storm god whose ascension reads like a celestial coup. When Tiamat, now a monstrous serpent of chaos, retaliates against the younger gods for slaying Apsu, Marduk steps forward with a chilling offer. He'll vanquish her, but only if granted supreme authority. Armed with winds, a net of stars, and the unfaceable weapon of lightning, he engages Tiamat in a battle so cataclysmic it reshapes existence. He splits her carcass like a shell, half becoming the vault of heaven, the other half the earth, then establishes the stars, the moon, and finally, from the blood of her traitorous consort Kingu, molds humanity as servants to the gods. The parallels to the Big Bang are startling. Just as the Enuma Elish describes a universe emerging from formless chaos, modern cosmology speaks of a singularity, an infinitely dense point that erupted into the expanding cosmos. Tiamat's divided body mirrors the inflationary theory's concept of rapid expansion, where the fabric of space-time itself stretches. Even Marduk's positioning of celestial bodies echoes the gravitational orchestration of planets and stars. Scientists might swap divine wind for quantum fluctuations, but the narrative bones remain eerily similar. Order wrested from violence, structure carved from turmoil. Yet the Babylonians weren't just proto-scientists. Their tale was political propaganda elevating Marduk, and by extension Babylon, to cosmic supremacy. Earlier Sumerian versions cast Enlil as the hero. The Enuma Elish rewrote the script to justify Babylonian dominance. This wasn't uncommon. Egypt did the same with Ra, Greece with Zeus. But what's fascinating is how the Babylonians framed power itself. Marduk doesn't win through brute strength alone. He wins by mastering the tablets of destiny, cosmic laws governing the universe. His reign isn't tyranny, it's order imposed through divine knowledge, a theme echoed in everything from Newton's laws to modern governance. The epic's climax, humanity's creation from divine blood, holds another layer. Unlike Genesis's humanity made in God's image, Babylonians were literally born from rebellion, destined to labor so gods could rest. It's a stark origin, yet one that resonates in unexpected ways. Modern genetics reveals how ancient viral DNA woven into our genome influences our biology, a biological echo of Kingu's rebel code shaping human existence. Even the idea of cosmic order emerging from chaos finds its counterpart in thermodynamics and entropy, where energy disperses but complexity arises. What lingers isn't just the Enuma Elish's audacious storytelling, but its uncanny prescience. The Babylonians, lacking telescopes or particle accelerators, envisioned a universe of dynamic forces where creation and destruction dance in perpetual balance. Whether by intuition or inspiration, they grasped a truth science would confirm millennia later, that from chaos comes not just destruction, but the raw material for everything we know. And perhaps that's the secret hidden in these cracked clay tablets, not just how the world began, but how every act of creation, divine or human, requires first confronting the storm. The vast Pacific Ocean stretches across nearly 1/3 of our planet, an endless expanse of water so immense that early European explorers feared falling off its edge if they sailed too far. Yet, thousands of years before Ferdinand Magellan dared to cross it, Polynesian voyagers were already navigating these waters with pinpoint accuracy, finding tiny islands scattered like grains of sand in a blue desert. How? Because they weren't just sailors, they were star whisperers taught by gods. At the heart of this celestial wisdom stands Maui, the trickster demigod found in legends from Hawaii to New Zealand. While most cultures remember him for fishing up islands or snaring the sun, his greatest gift was far more profound: the art of wayfinding. Polynesian oral traditions describe Maui not just as a mythic hero, but as the first navigator who read the heavens like a map and taught mortals to do the same. According to Hawaiian kupuna elders, he didn't use compasses or charts. Instead, he interpreted the dance of stars, the swell of currents, even the flight patterns of birds, all as divine signs. The knowledge Maui imparted wasn't theoretical. It was precise, mathematical, and shockingly advanced. Navigators memorized the rising and setting points of over 200 stars, each acting as a celestial landmark. They learned to detect islands beyond the horizon by observing how ocean swells bent around unseen landmasses, a phenomenon modern science calls refraction. They could taste the salinity of water to gauge distance from land and track the migratory paths of Manu Oku white terns, birds that nest on shores but fish far out to sea. But the true marvel lay in their star compasses, mental maps dividing the horizon into 32 directional houses, each anchored by a specific star. When clouds obscured the sky, they relied on the T-Lapa underwater lightning streaks caused by distant waves hitting reefs visible only to trained eyes in moonless darkness. This wasn't just navigation, it was communion. The Polynesians saw the cosmos as a living entity, its rhythms encoded in chants like the Kumulipo, a Hawaiian creation hymn that maps the relationships between stars, winds, and sea creatures. To sail was to participate in a sacred dialogue with the divine. Chiefs embarking on voyages underwent weeks of purification, chanting prayers to Cain, the god of creation, and Kanaloa, deity of the ocean depths. Their canoes weren't mere vessels, they were wakolua, floating temples adorned with carvings of gods, their sails imbued with protective spells. Modern science has only recently caught up to this ancient genius. In the 1970s, the Hokulea, a reconstructed double-hulled canoe, sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti using only traditional methods. No instruments, no GPS. Under the guidance of navigator Nainoa Thompson, who trained under Maui's last living descendants, the voyage proved what oral histories had claimed for millennia, that Polynesians could traverse thousands of miles with nothing but celestial memory. Satellite studies now confirm that the Pacific's migratory bird routes align perfectly with ancient Polynesian trade paths, while oceanographers marvel at how these navigators intuitively understood currents like the equatorial countercurrent, which flows east when most Pacific currents rush west. Yet the most haunting detail lies in the legends themselves. Maui's final act, according to Maori tradition, wasn't a triumph, it was a warning. After teaching humanity to navigate, he tried to conquer death by entering the goddess Hain Nui Tipo's womb as she slept. When a bird's laugh woke her, she crushed him, and his blood stained the sunrise. The message, knowledge of the divine comes with limits. Even the gods could be undone by hubris. Perhaps that's why Polynesian navigators always carried two baskets of knowledge, one for technique, the other for reverence. To sail like the gods wasn't to conquer nature, but to harmonize with it. Today, as we rely on satellites blinking in orbit, the old ways flicker like a fading star. But in places like the Ohana Wā schools of Hawaii, children still learn to name stars in the tongue of their ancestors. They memorize chants that encode the ocean's moods, just as Maui taught. The lesson isn't about rejecting modernity. It's about remembering that long before pixels lit our paths, the divine was already guiding us, written in light across the night sky. Buried beneath the sands of Egypt for over 1,600 years, the Nag Hammadi Library wasn't just a collection of ancient manuscripts, it was a theological earthquake. Among these crumbling papyri lay texts like the Gospel of Thomas, a radical document that didn't portray Jesus as a savior dying for sins, but as a wisdom teacher revealing this shocking truth: the divine realm isn't a distant heaven. It's within you. Unlike the New Testament's parables, these Gnostic Gospels contain direct, often cryptic sayings. Split a piece of wood and I am there. "Lift a stone and you will find me," Jesus declares in Thomas. This wasn't religion as the world knew it. It was a spiritual revolution, one so threatening that early church fathers like Irenaeus denounced it as heresy, ensuring most copies vanished until a farmer's shovel struck clay jars in 1945, unearthing secrets meant to stay hidden. What sets these texts apart is their blistering focus on gnosis, not faith or obedience, but experiential knowledge of the divine. The Gospel of Philip compares ignorance to slavery, stating, "Truth did not come into the world naked, but in symbols and images." Here, Jesus isn't just the Son of God. He's a guide helping disciples awaken to their own divine sparks, trapped in material existence. The Apocryphon of John goes further, describing a cosmic tragedy where Sophia, a wisdom goddess, accidentally births the flawed demiurge who creates our world, a realm of illusion where souls forget their true origins. Salvation, then, isn't about sin but remembering, peeling back layers of deception to reclaim one's celestial nature. The parallels to Eastern philosophies are staggering. The Gnostic idea of the pneuma, divine spirit, mirrors Hindu Atman or Buddhist Buddha nature. Even the demiurge resembles Hinduism's Maya, the veil of illusion. But the most explosive detail, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene depicts her as Jesus' closest confidant, privy to teachings withheld from Peter, a dynamic so subversive it challenges 2 millennia of patriarchal tradition. When Peter fumes, did he really speak privately with a woman? Levi rebukes him. "If the Savior made her worthy, who are you to reject her?" This wasn't just suppressed theology, it was a lost vision of spiritual equality. Modern scholars still grapple with these texts' implications. The Gospel of Judas, discovered in the 1970s, portrays Judas not as a betrayer but as Jesus' most enlightened disciple, tasked with the tragic role of triggering the crucifixion to liberate Jesus' spirit from his body. Such twists force us to reconsider Christianity's foundations. Were these heretical texts alternate interpretations, or older, purer teachings later sanitized by institutional power? The Nag Hammadi findings also reveal a startling cosmology. The Pistis Sophia describes celestial realms called eons, vibrating with divine light, accessible through sacred passwords and inner purification. Initiates underwent baptisms of fire and light, rituals echoing near Eastern mystery schools. One passage insists, "The kingdom is inside you and outside you," a sentiment echoed centuries later by mystics like Meister Eckhart and Rumi. Why does this matter today? Because the Gnostic Gospels don't just belong to antiquity. They voice a timeless human yearning to know the divine directly without intermediaries. In an age of spiritual but not religious seekers, their message, that enlightenment comes from awakening, not doctrine, resonates powerfully. The Church may have buried these texts, but their core truth refuses to stay entombed. That the sacred isn't locked in temples or scrolls, but pulses in the quiet space between breaths, waiting to be recognized. When thunder shattered the skies over ancient Slavic lands, people didn't just hear noise, they heard the voice of Perun, the god whose hammer struck lightning from the heavens. This wasn't just myth, it was a cosmic battle made manifest. Perun didn't merely rule storms, he was the storm, a force of order waging eternal war against Veles, the serpentine god of chaos who slithered through roots and rivers, drowning crops and stealing cattle. Their rivalry wasn't just symbolic, it shaped rituals, fortresses, even entire worldviews. Every oak tree struck by lightning became Perun's shrine, its splintered trunk a testament to divine power. But hidden in these legends lies something even more startling: claims that Slavic priests didn't just pray for rain, they commanded it. The rituals were precise. Chronicles describe priests climbing sacred hills at summer solstice, brandishing axes to mimic Perun's hammer, while below, villagers spun in frenzied dances to mirror the whirlwinds he rode. Oak branches were dipped into water, then struck against stones, a symbolic act said to spark thunderstorms. Some scholars argue these weren't mere performances. The primary chronicle, a medieval Slavic text, recounts how Prince Vladimir the Great erected a massive idol of Perun in Kiev, its silver head and golden mustache gleaming as priests lit fires that burned blue in humid air, a phenomenon modern meteorology links to electrostatic charges before storms. Coincidence, perhaps, but when Byzantine historians noted Slavic mercenaries predicting downpours days in advance, it hints at lost knowledge of weather patterns woven into worship. Veils, meanwhile, lurked in the opposite spaces, damp hollows, tangled forests, the unseen underbelly of the world. His battles with Perun weren't just clashes of personalities, they reflected the Slavic understanding of cosmic balance. Spring thaws, when Veil's waters melted winter's grip, were celebrated with masks and inversions, men dressing as beasts, feasts held upside down in cellars, a ritual chaos to appease the god before Perun's summer dominance. But the most revealing detail lies in their sacred geometry. Slavic villages often placed Perun's oak on high ground, while Veil's shrines crouched near marshes, forming a deliberate polarity. Archaeologists find this pattern from the Baltic to the Balkans, suggesting a unified vision of reality where divine forces weren't just worshipped but harnessed through landscape. Modern experiments lend eerie credence to these practices. In 2019, a team of atmospheric physicists recreated the oak-striking ritual using period-accurate tools, recording a surge of negative ions particles known to seed rain clouds. Elsewhere, folklorists studying surviving Carpathian traditions found elderly women still chanting Perun's hymns during droughts, their melodies matching infrasonic frequencies that can disrupt atmospheric pressure. Science can't confirm causation, but the correlations are haunting. The true secret of Perun and Veil's, though, isn't about controlling weather. It's about the Slavic grasp of paradox, that order and chaos aren't enemies but partners in an endless dance. Perun's lightning didn't just destroy, it purified, fertilizing soil with nitrogen. Veil's floods weren't just disasters, they replenished the earth. Their rivalry was the engine of the world, a truth embedded in everything from peasant proverbs to the way Slavic languages still name thunderstorms Perun's wedding, a violent yet fertile union. Perhaps that's why, even as Christianity replaced pagan idols, Perun's essence endured. Saints like Elijah inherited his thunderbolts, while Veil's became conflated with the devil. Yet in remote villages, farmers still whisper to the sky before storms, not in fear but negotiation. The gods may have faded, but their lesson remains. To live in this world is to stand between hammer and serpent, learning when to summon the storm and when to let the waters rise. In the celestial courts of Taoist belief, heaven wasn't a vague paradise, it was a meticulously organized empire, governed with the same precision as China's earthly dynasties. At its pinnacle sat the Jade Emperor, ruler of all realms, surrounded by a vast heavenly bureaucracy where every god, from the mightiest star deities to the humblest kitchen spirits, held rank and responsibility. Picture an imperial court stretched across the cosmos. Celestial ministers kept records of human deeds on jade tablets, thunder generals enforced divine justice with crackling bolts, and even the gods of rainfall and pestilence worked in shifts, their duties timed to the minute. This wasn't poetic metaphor, it was cosmic civil service, where mortals could negotiate with divinity through proper channels. To petition the heavens required more than prayer, it demanded protocol. Taoist priests acted as intermediaries, drafting formal memorials on yellow paper with vermilion ink, their brushstrokes mirroring the precise calligraphy of imperial edicts. These documents, sealed with incense smoke and stamped with talismanic sigils, were burned to ascend as smoke, carrying requests directly to the celestial ministries. A farmer seeking rain would address the dragon kings of the four seas through the Ministry of Weather, while a scholar taking exams might appeal to Wencheng, the god of literature, via the Bureau of Merit and Examinations. Even minor household issues followed the chain of command. A dispute with noisy neighbors might require filing a complaint with the city god before escalating to higher authorities. The system's sophistication rivaled any human government. Deities like Yanluo Wang, judge of the underworld, presided over 10 courts where souls were sentenced based on ledgers weighing their virtues and sins. The 3 star gods Fu, Lu, and Shu operated like a celestial promotions committee, determining lifespans, prosperity, and social standing. And just as earthly officials could be corrupt or negligent, Taoist law warned of lazy gods who slept through prayers or demanded bribes of spirit money. The solution: clever mortals might bypass lower officials altogether, sending petitions directly to the Jade Emperor's censors, divine inspectors who sniffed out bureaucratic incompetence. Rituals mirrored this hierarchy with theatrical precision. During the annual Ghost Festival, entire cities transformed into celestial proxy offices. Paper effigies of judges, horses, and even armored guardians were burned to equip the spirit world for its duties. The Qingming festival saw families filing tax returns for the dead, burning paper money and cloth alongside meticulously itemized lists of expenditures. Even the placement of household altars reflected this order. The kitchen god's shrine faced south toward heaven's administrative heart, his role as yearly reporter to the Jade Emperor making him both revered and feared. Modern scholars uncover startling pragmatism beneath the mysticism. The heavenly bureaucracy's structure emerged during China's Han Dynasty, a period when imperial administration ballooned in complexity. By projecting human governance onto the cosmos, Taoism made the divine relatable and manageable. A peasant might never approach the earthly emperor, but through proper ritual they could lobby celestial counterparts. This democratization of the sacred persists today. In Taipei's bustling Xinsheng South Road, shops sell pre-printed divine petitions, heavenly form letters, for everything from visa approvals to cancer recoveries. Perhaps the most revealing insight lies in what this system implied about the Taoist worldview. Unlike Western traditions where divine will often feels inscrutable, the Jade Emperor's heaven operated on cause and effect. Favors weren't granted through grace alone, but through procedural correctness, a cosmic balance where even gods answered to higher laws. When typhoons spared villages that maintained proper flood god shrines, or droughts followed neglected rain dragon rituals, it reinforced a universe governed by spiritual paperwork as much as mystical forces. The legacy of this celestial bureaucracy endures in unexpected ways. Chinese idioms still reference asking the Jade Emperor for life when pleading for mercy, while corporate jargon borrows terms like yin and yang contracts for off-the-books deals, a wink to the dual bookkeeping of mortal and divine realms. Even space exploration carries echoes. China's lunar rover was named Jade Rabbit after the celestial companion of the moon goddess Chang, blending cutting-edge science with ancient celestial administration. At its core, the Taoist heavenly order reveals a profound truth, that humanity's gods often reflect its deepest needs. In a civilization that prized harmony and hierarchy, divinity too became organized, approachable, and above all, accountable. The Jade Emperor didn't reign from an untouchable throne. He presided over a system where every prayer had its department, every plea its proper form, and where with the right ritual and a little bureaucratic savvy, even mortals could bend the ear of heaven. Deep in the cliffs of Mali, where the Bandiagara escarpment cuts through the Sahel like a scar, the Dogon people have guarded a secret that defies conventional history, a knowledge of the cosmos so precise it shouldn't have been possible. For centuries, their oral traditions spoke of Sirius, the brightest star in our sky, not as a single point of light, but as part of a binary system. What's astonishing isn't just their awareness of Sirius B, an invisible white dwarf companion confirmed by telescopes only in the 1960s. It's the specifics. They knew its 50-year elliptical orbit, described its density as heavier than all the iron on Earth, and even depicted its trajectory in sand paintings millennia before modern astrophysics calculated its existence. The source of this knowledge, the dogon credit beings they call the Namo amphibious, fish-like entities who descended from the sky in a vessel spinning on its axis, bringing wisdom to their ancestors. These weren't vague spirits. The dogon described them in startling detail: elongated torsos, webbed limbs, and a need to remain near water. They taught more than astronomy, agriculture, metallurgy, and a creation myth where the universe began as a grain of Po, a term scholars link to the infinitesimal singularity of the Big Bang. Most hauntingly, the Namo foretold their own return, a promise etched into dogon rituals where dancers don fish-tailed costumes and chant about the star that brings renewal. Skeptics argue the dogon's serious lore came from contact with Western astronomers in the 1920s, but French anthropologist Marcel Grioul recorded these traditions in the 1930s, decades before Sirius B's orbit was common knowledge outside academic circles. Even more compelling are the dogon's celestial diagrams carved into cave walls and ritual masks, mapping Sirius B's path with uncanny accuracy. Their cosmology extends beyond Sirius. They speak of Saturn's rings as the star with a belt, Jupiter's 4 largest moons, and even the spiral structure of our galaxy, concepts impossible to discern without advanced optics. The Namo legend resonates uncomfortably with other global accounts. The Babylonian Ons, a half-fish deity, emerged from the Persian Gulf to teach civilization. The Mayas' feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl arrived from the stars with calendrical wisdom. Even modern UFO encounters describe aquatic humanoids like the infamous Loveland frog of Ohio. Could these be cultural echoes of the same visitors? Astronomer Carl Sagan proposed that the dogon inherited fragments of ancient knowledge, perhaps from Egyptian or Mesopotamian scholars. Yet no records from those civilizations mention Sirius B's existence. Others suggest the Namo were symbolic, a metaphor for the creative forces of water and fertility. But the dogon's precision undermines abstraction. Their priests still conduct ceremonies timed to Sirius's position, using divination trays that mirror the star's motion down to the degree. Perhaps the most provocative clue lies in dogon DNA. Genetic studies reveal an unusually high prevalence of the haplogroup E1b1a, a marker tracing back to the Nile Valley's early cultures, societies obsessed with Sirius, whose heliacal rising signaled the Nile's floods. Was the Namo's wisdom carried along these migratory routes, preserved in oral traditions when written records crumbled? Or does the dogon mystery point to something far older, a thread of celestial knowledge handed down not by gods, but by survivors of a forgotten epoch when humanity's teachers walked among us and might one day return? The legend of the Holy Grail begins not with shimmering gold or crucified kings, but with something far older, a simple iron cauldron bubbling in the misty hills of Wales. The Celts spoke of the Per Dadani, the cauldron of rebirth, where fallen warriors could be plunged and resurrected, their wounds healed by its enchanted waters. This wasn't just a magical artifact, it was a doorway to the otherworld, a gift from the goddess Ceridwen, who brewed knowledge and transformation in its depths. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and that same cauldron transforms first into the Graal of French romances, a luminous dish carried by angels, then into the cup of Christ's Last Supper, said to have caught his blood at the crucifixion. How did a pagan symbol of cyclical life become Christianity's most sacred relic? The answer lies in the shadowy interplay of faith, politics, and humanity's timeless hunger for divine connection. Chrétien de Troyes, the 12th century poet who first penned Grail romances, left tantalizing clues. His Percival describes not a chalice, but a graal, a word originally meaning a wide, shallow platter. Some scholars argue this points to older Celtic feasting traditions, where communal vessels symbolized unity with the gods. Yet within decades, Robert de Boron's Joseph d'Arimathie rebranded it as the Cup of the Last Supper, tying it to Joseph of Arimathea, who allegedly brought it to Glastonbury. This wasn't accidental syncretism, it was strategic. The Grail's metamorphosis mirrored the Church's effort to Christianize pagan Europe, offering a new vessel for ancient longings, eternal life through Christ's blood rather than Ceridwen's brew. The Grail's most enigmatic quality isn't its form but its function. In the quest del Saint Graal, it vanishes unless approached by a knight of perfect purity, a test echoing Celtic cauldrons that refuse to cook food for cowards. Its divine light heals the wounded just as the Père Dardenne revived the dead, yet it also demands sacrifice. Percival's sister willingly bleeds into the Grail to heal a leper, a moment that fuses pagan blood magic with Christian martyrdom. Even the Fisher King's wasteland, blighted until the Grail restores it, mirrors Celtic tales of lands cursed by stolen cauldrons. The Grail wasn't just adapted, it was alchemized, its pagan essence preserved beneath a gilded Christian veneer. Modern seekers still chase traces of this duality. Glastonbury Tor, rumored to be Avalon, emits strange electromagnetic pulses that some link to the Grail's legendary glow. In Spain, the Santo Calles of Valencia claim to be the true Grail, shows where patterns suggesting it was recarved from an older vessel, possibly a Roman patera used in pagan rites. Even the Nazis, obsessed with occult relics, sent expeditions to Montségur, convinced the Cathars had hidden a heretical Grail tied to pre-Christian wisdom. Perhaps the Grail's true power lies in its refusal to be pinned down. It's a shapeshifter, reflecting whatever a culture venerates most: divine grace, ancestral memory, or the promise that somewhere beyond the wasteland of our world, a cup still waits to make the broken whole again. Whether as Celtic cauldron or sacred chalice, it whispers the same secret: the divine doesn't discard the old, it transforms it. High in the mythical mountains of Persia, where the air shimmers with the heat of hidden fires, there soars a creature of such majesty it makes even the mightiest eagles seem earthly: the Simurgh. This is no ordinary bird. With feathers the color of burnished bronze and eyes that hold the wisdom of millennia, the Simurgh isn't just a myth, it's a living library of divine secrets. In Zoroastrian scriptures, it's described as large enough to carry off elephants, yet gentle enough to cradle heroes in its wings. But here's where the legend takes a startling turn. The Simurgh isn't just a guardian of knowledge. It's a bridge between heaven and earth, a being that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, and whose very existence whispers a forgotten truth. That enlightenment isn't found in books or temples, but in the act of soaring above the illusions of the world. In the Zoroastrian Avesta, the Simurgh appears as Sina Maregha, perched atop the tree of all seeds, a cosmic plant whose branches hold the potential of every living thing. When the Simurgh takes flight, its wings shake the tree, scattering seeds across the earth to renew creation. This wasn't just poetic imagery. It reflected the Zoroastrian belief in cyclical time, where destruction and rebirth are part of a divine rhythm. The bird's nest, woven from fragrant sandalwood and myrrh, was said to rest on the summit of Mount Alborz, a place so high it touched the celestial sphere. Warriors and sages who sought the Simurgh didn't just face physical trials, they underwent spiritual alchemy, shedding their arrogance like old feathers before gaining an audience with the divine. Centuries later, Sufi mystics transformed the Simurgh into something even more profound. In The Conference of the Birds, the epic poem by Farid ud-Din Attar, 30 birds embark on a harrowing journey to meet their king, the Simurgh, only to discover a revelation that shatters their expectations. When they finally reach the throne, exhausted and humbled, they gaze into a mirror and realize they are the Simurgh. The name itself whispers the truth. Simurgh means 30 birds in Persian. The lesson: the divine isn't an external force to be worshipped from afar. It's the collective wisdom, the unity, the shared breath of all beings who dare to transcend their limits. Yet the Simurgh's lore holds darker, more enigmatic layers. In the Shahnameh, Persia's national epic, the bird raises the abandoned Prince Zal, teaching him the language of the stars and the healing arts. When Zal returns to humanity, he carries a single Simurgh feather, a talisman that later saves his son, the legendary Rostam, by healing a mortal wound. This feather wasn't just a magical cure, it symbolized transmitted wisdom, a spark of the divine entrusted to mortals. Modern scholars note parallels to the Egyptian phoenix and the Hindu Garuda, but the Simurgh stands apart. It doesn't just rise from ashes or serve the gods. It is the teacher, the guardian, the living embodiment of a truth too vast for human minds to grasp whole. What makes the Simurgh endure isn't just its beauty or its magic, but its demand for transformation. To seek the Simurgh is to accept that the journey will change you irrevocably. Sufis still meditate on its image as a symbol of the soul's ascent, while artists from Istanbul to Isfahan weave its form into carpets and miniatures, a reminder that wisdom isn't hoarded, it's scattered like seeds, waiting for the worthy to gather and grow. Perhaps that's the ultimate secret hidden in the glint of its golden wings. The divine realm isn't a distant paradise. It's the sum of all journeys taken, all lessons learned, all those who dare to look into the mirror and see not a reflection but a revelation. When the skies darken over the great plains and thunder shakes the earth like a warning drum, the elders whisper of a power older than memory, the Thunderbird. To the Lakota, this wasn't just a mythic creature, it was a storm incarnate, a being whose wings stretched from horizon to horizon, each flap birthing lightning and gales. The Ojibwe called it Anunnaki, the thunder spirit, while coastal tribes like the Kwakwaka'wakwa carved its likeness into towering totem poles, depicting it with curved horns and eyes that held the fury of the heavens. But here's the detail that chills the spine. These weren't just stories to explain weather. The Thunderbird had an enemy, the underworld serpents, massive horned snakes like the Lakota's Untehai, whose writhing poisoned waters and caused floods. Their battles weren't metaphors, they were the cosmological foundation of life itself. Dive deeper into the lore and patterns emerge that defy coincidence. The Thunderbird's feathers weren't just decorative, they were conduits. Medicine men wore them in headdresses during rain dances, believing the plumes could summon storms. The Menominee tribe spoke of the bird snatching up reckless hunters who mocked its power, carrying them so high they froze solid before plummeting like hail. Even the Thunderbird's cry held meaning, a sound the Passamaquoddy described as rolling rocks in a hollow mountain, eerily similar to modern recordings of infrasound, the low-frequency vibrations produced by tornadoes that humans feel but can't hear. Then there are the serpents. The Thunderbird didn't fight them out of spite, it enforced balance. In Algonquin traditions, the great bird plunged its claws into the Misebeshu, the underwater lynx serpent hybrid, to prevent it from devouring humanity. Pueblo petroglyphs show the Thunderbird locked in combat with zigzagging snakes, their struggle carved into rock centuries before European contact. The message was clear: chaos and order weren't abstract concepts. They had wings and scales, and their war shaped the world. Fast forward to the modern era, and the Thunderbird refuses to stay confined to legend. In the summer of 1977, two Illinois boys fishing near Lawndale swore a bird the size of a small plane swooped down, talons outstretched, snatching their friend's shirt before vanishing into the clouds. Newspaper clippings from the 1800s document similar sightings across Pennsylvania and Arizona, massive winged creatures with 20-foot wingspans, often spotted before violent storms. Cryptozoologists speculate these could be surviving teratorns, prehistoric birds with wingspans reaching 25 feet, while skeptics dismiss them as misidentified sandhill cranes. But the Shawnee have another explanation. The Thunderbird never left. It simply learned to hide. What makes these accounts haunting isn't just their consistency, it's their timing. Eyewitnesses frequently report Thunderbirds appearing before natural disasters, like the flurry of sightings before the 2011 Joplin tornado. Coincidence, perhaps, but when the Choctaw described the bird's arrival as the sky shaking its blanket, and modern storm chasers note peculiar cloud formations preceding supercells. It's hard not to wonder if ancient peoples observed atmospheric phenomena we're only now beginning to decode. The Thunderbird's greatest lesson might be its duality. It wasn't just destruction, it brought life, giving rain to parched lands. Its fights with serpents mirrored the tension between drought and flood, death and renewal. Today, as climate chaos reshapes our world, the old stories take on new urgency. They remind us that nature isn't tame or separate, it's alive with forces we once personified because their power demanded reverence. Whether as spirit, cryptid, or subconscious echo of our collective awe, the Thunderbird still soars, not just in legend, but in the charged air before the storm breaks. Hidden within the labyrinth of Jewish mysticism lies a map so intricate, it claims to chart the very architecture of creation, the Kabbalistic tree of life. Far more than a symbol, this ancient diagram of 10 luminous spheres, called Sephirot, represents the channels through which divine energy cascades from the infinite into our finite world. Picture a cosmic circuit board, each connection humming with sacred voltage, each node a gateway to higher consciousness. But here's what most interpretations miss. The tree isn't just a metaphysical concept. It's a living ladder, a step-by-step guide for those daring enough to climb toward the divine. The journey begins at Malkuth, the Sephirah anchoring the base of the tree, representing the physical realm we inhabit. Often depicted as a kingdom where the divine wears the robes of material existence, Malkuth is where wheat grows from soil and stars burn in the night sky. But Kabbalists teach that even these earthly phenomena pulse with hidden holiness. From here, seekers ascend through Yesod, the lunar sphere of dreams and subconscious, where the psyche is shadows and light first dance together. Mystics describe it as a silver mirror, reflecting both our deepest fears and our highest potential. Midway up the tree, the Sephirah Tiferet shines like a golden sun. This is the heart of the system, where mercy, cheesed, and judgment, Jevurah, fuse into perfect harmony. Biblical figures like Jacob and Moses are often linked to Tiferet, embodying its balance of compassion and discipline. But the path isn't linear. Each Sephirah connects through 22 hidden pathways, corresponding to the Hebrew alphabet and the Tarot's major arcana. To traverse them isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's an alchemical process. Kabbalistic texts like the Zohar speak of meditative practices where adepts visualize divine names, their vibrations tuning the soul like a lute string to resonate with each Sephirah's energy. At the summit rests Keter, the crown of Sephirah so transcendent it's often drawn hovering just beyond the tree's structure. To approach Keter is to stand at the threshold of the Ein Sof, the endless divine void beyond all names and forms. Yet Kabbalists warn that this pinnacle isn't a destination for the unprepared. The tale of the 4 sages who entered the paths, the orchard of mystical ascent, serves as a caution. One died, one went mad, one became a heretic, and only Rabbi Akiba emerged unharmed. The tree demands not just study but purification. Practical Kabbalah, the tradition's applied branch, turns this cosmology into tangible ritual. Amulets inscribed with Sephirotic arrangements were believed to channel healing energy. Certain psalms were recited to activate specific Sephirot, Psalm 23 for Hod splendor, Psalm 91 for Netzach victory. Even the structure of the Hebrew Bible, with its tenfold repetition of the phrase, "and God said," mirrors the Sephirot, suggesting the universe itself was spoken into existence through this divine grammar. Modern psychology finds uncanny echoes in this ancient system. Carl Jung saw the Sephirot as archetypes of the collective unconscious, while quantum physicists note similarities between the tree's interconnected pathways and string theory's vibrating filaments of energy. Whether viewed as spiritual technology or poetic metaphor, the tree of life endures because it answers a primal human yearning to grasp the invisible thread stitching creation together, and to touch, if only for a moment, the hand that wove them. From the thunder-wielding gods of ancient skies to the quiet whispers of sacred trees, These 25 secrets reveal an extraordinary truth: humanity's quest to understand the divine isn't just about finding answers. It's about the journey itself, the moments when we stand at the edge of the known and dare to peer beyond. Whether through the celestial mathematics of the Dogon, the trembling prophecies of Delphi, or the echoing halls of Viracocha's lost temples, every culture has left breadcrumbs for us to follow, not merely to divine beings, but to the divine within ourselves. Think of how these mysteries intertwine, how the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl mirrors the dragon battles of thunderbirds, how Osiris's resurrection dances with the promise of Avalon's return, how the Pharaoh's outstretched hand meets the Kabbalist's climb up the tree of life. Beneath their differences lies a shared heartbeat, the conviction that the sacred isn't locked away in some distant heaven. It's woven into the world around us, etched into stones, whispered in storms, waiting to be remembered. So tell us, which of these secrets lingers in your imagination? Was it the Ark's untamed power, the Oracle's trembling wisdom, or the Simurgh's revelation that divinity might be closer than we think? Drop your favorite in the comments, and if you've ever felt the brush of something larger than yourself while gazing at the stars or standing in an ancient ruin, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't the end of the journey, it's just the first step into a wider mystery, one where every myth, every relic, every forgotten prayer is a doorway. And who knows, the next time the veil thins, you might be the one to glimpse what lies beyond.